Hello and welcome to week 13. Whoa, just a few more weeks left. It's all going to be over and then we can open Christmas presents if you do that. Okay, week 13 here in social psychology, and we have some very interesting chapters. These are actually chapters very germane to a reading and thinking that I've been doing as a psychologist for a very, very long time. And that is the whole area of attraction and positive relationships. I mean, how did that happen? I'm writing and reading about that all the time. And hopefully there's a book and then there's a course that I want to put out on relationships. And not that I'm the expert, mind you. I've had plenty of failings myself, but learned from those mistakes. And these are fascinating areas, and so central, particularly when we look at the draw we have toward others and attraction, and then the notion of isolation that many of us experienced while we were in the pandemic, and how vital we realized those connections are. So we're not just talking about romantic relationships. We're talking about friends. Who attracts you as friends, not just, romantic partners. 2 chapters, chapter 22, attraction and beauty itself, how we define that and how that interacts with society's expectations, and of course, positive relationships in chapter 23. Lots of content in this class. I know that you're appreciating that. So in the discussion for chapter 22, I'm asking us to reflect upon attraction, its advantages, and the halo effect. Those kinds of, beautiful people. What's going on? Why is Kim Kardashian so famous? Talent-wise, I don't know. I don't watch that. But individuals who meet I will say this. Not only does Kim Kardashian meet many of the society's expectations of beauty, she's actually in a position to define what those are. That the power that comes with that individual and others in that family, Chloe and the other sisters. You think about how powerful those individuals are over the view that other people have of themselves. We've talked in this class about the Looking Glass Self Committee, I hope we did. And that Looking Glass Self Committee, those individuals that we place on a committee in order to, how would they see what I'm looking in the mirror? How would they view? And then I can incorporate that. Individuals, influencers, like individuals on social media like that, can play a huge part in a national cultural definition of what is beauty. And the halo effect. We tend to group positive traits together and we tend to group negative traits together. A little bit of a bias there going on. Let's have a discussion about those factors. And then the quiz dives a little deeper into that. You can even draw information from the discussion. How does culture, and what factors, let's say, in culture define beauty? Gave you one: social media, individuals that play a role in all of that. I mean, it's amazing. On my news app that I have on my iPhone, I will read about what's going on in Kiev, with the war in Ukraine. And the next story is, how could Kim Kardashian have possibly worn those boots out in public? That's a little mind-bending. I've actually adapted the app a little bit to kind of take those things out because it was just too much of a change in thinking to move from a war going on to why we care about. I'm being judgmental, I'll admit, but why do we care what Kim's wearing? Except that she'll have power over individuals going to get those boots. Okay. Move away from that. Chapter 23, positive relationships. How to get one and how to keep one. This is not necessarily what that chapter is about, but, First, defining how important positive relationships are. And I know from the discussions, there's many people in this class that have been open about a history of negative people in their lives. Maybe you might even have the insight to recognize when you've been a negative impact in somebody's life and how necessary it is to move away from those kinds of practices. Move away from those who are negative and controlling your emotional life so that you're not a negative individual either. In the discussion, we look about positive deposits, like this analogy of an account into which we deposit positives and deposit negatives, and kind of balancing out, are there more positives to negatives? And this is not, it doesn't, there's some negatives once you put there's some pretty impactful negatives. Not everything's worth this. Not every negative is worth a positive. Not every positive is worth a negative. So keep that in mind. There's different denominations of this. There are certain negatives that will end the relationship, and there's certain negatives that are just irritating. There's certain positives that are nice, but there's certain positives that are necessary for that relationship to be a positive relationship. So there's value added. Let's discuss that. Let's discuss your experience of people investing in your bank with positive, times that you've invested in other people positively, and maybe explore some of the opposite ways in which we've done that. Then the quiz actually make you take another little test on your conflict style. Now, the problem with these kinds of tests is the same as social psychology. It's situational. If you're working at your job and encountering a conflict, that might be very different than when you're at home. Nonetheless, you could even, if you want, you could take this test multiple times thinking about the social situations in which you find yourself in conflict. Now, conflict ranges from a disagreement at work to you're ducking from the fire at the frying pan. It's all of that. So you could take the test from the perspective of your work and your role at work. You could take this test from the perspective of your role in your family, with your friends, and all this stuff. But either way, we end up sometimes being able to glean almost like a personality trait having to do with how we usually deal with conflict. And that's what that test does. So I want you to explore this test. You're advanced students in psychology now. You can explore this test critically. What does it not measure? You can use the test in a way to give yourself useful information so that your style is rated by context. And then at the same time, being open to the notion of what does the test tell about me that it might be useful. That's what these tests are for. So I want you to take the conflict styles test and then reflect on the results. Take as much, if you just want to take it once, that's fine. If you want to explore deeper, course, take it more than once with those contexts in mind. Certainly one of the ways in which we might approach that test in different ways. So we're coming to the end of the class here pretty soon. We only have after this week, we only have a couple more weeks left. We're getting to the end. I've been I'll say it again. I'll probably say it, I'll be crying on the last video. It's been a great class. It's not over yet, but I'm really have enjoyed this class, really have enjoyed what has happened online, the leadership, and great followership. Let's not just point out good leaders. There are great individuals that, worked in the background. They're not necessarily posting the most, but, I see all that, and what a great group. It would have been very fun to do this class live, where we would have had that face-to-face interaction. That would have been great. But as it is, we didn't. So, kind of shows what can happen online as well. This great interaction that I've seen between you. I hope that perspective has been shared among all of you. So, before I get teary, I'm looking forward to the break too. So don't worry, I'm looking forward to that too. I think we all are. So have a great week. Again, looking at beauty and positive relationships. and I will see you on the discussion boards.